You're listening to the Movers Union podcast. We're here to talk about movement, philosophy, and everything in between. My name is Ben Wexler.
And I am Justin Cooper. We are both movement specialists, and this is the Movers Union.
Dude, okay, so we have a special topic we're going to do today.
Let's do it, yeah.
All right, so our special topic is we're going to rant. We're going to give the rant about what it's like being a yoga teacher. We're all drawn to yoga for the positive aspects of it. But the truth is that you can't have yang, you can't have positivity without yin and a little bit of negativity. And I feel like yoga, like it's kind of lame because that's how you have to sell it. You have to sell it as like, oh, this will teach you how to be eternally positive. But I feel like that's a lie, you know? And like, well, the reason I'm saying it is because I went through this myself. I went down the yoga path and I was so stoked about it. And I was just really trying to be nonstop positivity. That was my goal, was to be like nonstop positive. And then it kind of hit me. And when it did, I wasn't too happy about it, that life isn't all positive and you can't have yang without yin. And when that hit me, I was pretty upset, you know, because it felt like I had been lied to. But the real truth, too, and this might be a little too deep, is like that's kind of like the carrot on the string that like pulls people in. And you can get to that level, but it comes with this innate understanding of the negativity. Like you almost can't appreciate life without acknowledging the innate negativity in life.
I think you're right about the image of yoga that is presented as the marketing or whatever. It is so, blissful and happy and positive. But it's not that yoga can't bring you to that point, but it's that it's not a magic pill, and it's a hard, treacherous path to get there, you know? Like it's not, and I think that is the beauty of like part of what yoga teaches us is, okay, well, how can you maintain, and maybe not even how you can maintain a positive mindset, but how you can not succumb to the negative thoughts. Like as you're in a yoga class and you're in some pose that you never thought that you would get in, or, it's whatever pose you hate the most or whatever it is. And in that moment, so you're putting yourself into this struggle.
Right.
So that you can then observe your mind and see how your mind is reacting to this struggle.
Right.
So that then in real life, when you inevitably come up against this struggle, because that's like all that life is, how are you going to be able to control your mind
in that situation
and choose how to react to given situation? Right. So it's like we're practicing this thing. And I think it's the same for all workout, whether you're lifting or whatever you're running, you're doing sprints, gymnastics, whatever it is, it's like you're choosing to put yourself through a very difficult pursuit to like harden your mind and become more disciplined and develop the mindset that will allow you to be more successful in other areas.
Yeah.
But like that pathway, you have to go like into the belly of the beast in order to, potentially come out or see glimpses of the other side of like actually, being positive minded and all that as well.
For sure. And you spoke to it, like it's basically like a perspective flip. It's about learning to see the positive whenever you're inclined to see the negative. That's absolutely powerful. It's also like learning that the obstacle is the way. And like in your yoga practice, whenever it's time for crow, you might not want to hop into crow. You're like, oh shit, here we go. It's crow again. I don't want to do this. And then you can, like you said, you can watch all that happen in here. and then flip it. And that's the practice of yoga. But at the same time, like, there just is an innate amount of suck in life, and no amount of perspective flipping is gonna make it better, in my opinion. This is just how I might be wrong, but I think that, like, okay, you wake up every morning, right? You wake up, you stretch, whatever. Most of us get some kind of coffee. You have that first sip of coffee. Then what? What happens after that? You take a shit. You go and you take a fucking shit. All right. I'm sorry, but like, you could do all the perspective flipping in the world to make that moment beautiful. And like, I'm sure you can. Like, I've done it. Like, yeah, but nah, dude, at the end of the day, you're taking a shit. All right. And you can't eat without shit. You know what I mean? And like, trying to make shitting a beautiful thing, to me, is inauthentic. It's like, dude, you're just lying to yourself. Like, imagine if someone dies in your family, right? Like, yoga almost teaches you to be like, oh, well, it's beautiful. Like, they're going off into the afterlife. And like, I'm grateful for having known this person. And I just don't even like, I don't need to suffer at all right now. And it's like, no, dude. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to feel these emotions.
You had mentioned this before about Buddhism. I think in the episode 1 you had brought up like Buddhism and how they talk about how, you know, life is suffering, right? Which, okay, great, and I agree. Like, that is much of what life is, and then how you choose to endure that suffering. And I think that that's what it's about, right? Like, the mind's, and also understanding it's not gonna 100% be this, but this is the goal is to be able to have the mindset that will make whatever suffering that is going on not even the least suffering in that moment, but to allow it to have a positive payoff at some point in the future. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Like, whether it is... I hesitate to go back to the shitting analogy. But, you know, like, you just understand that it's one of the necessities to allow yourself to go through the rest of the day. And you can have the mindset of like, oh, that's nasty. I don't want to do it. I'm not gonna poop today. And then what's gonna happen? Well, you're gonna be constipated and you're gonna be miserable for the rest of the day until you finally succumb to it and kind of you just give up to it. You just render yourself to that, right?
Right. Surrender. Yeah.
Surrender. That's the word. You just surrender. And then you have that release, and it's gone, and you feel great.
Right, right. Yeah.
And you have to, you'll go through the same thing again tomorrow if you're lucky.
And from that point, like when you zoom out and you see it as like, okay, like this, I'm going to the we'll just say going to the bathroom. I'm going to the bathroom, or, any suffering that you endure, when you zoom out and you see it as part of the whole, and that it was a necessary part for this entire, let's say, day or month or year or life to happen, then it becomes beautiful. But like, it's almost like in that moment, trying to say that it's beautiful is like, to me, it's like dishonest and it's inauthentic.
Yeah. I agree. And I don't think that you should. And I also don't know, like, I do get the point that you're trying to get to of like the way that yoga is marketed and sold, because it's just a shallow snapshot of, as well as like, that's how marketing works. It's like, it's all or nothing in marketing. Right. That's just how it is. It's, ones and zeros, it's black and white, it's all or nothing. So of course that image or that snapshot is bullshit.
Right.
But then it's like, but then let's make sure that we're clarifying between the image that may often be portrayed and then like the way that you can actually come at it, which I feel like is more the actual teaching of yoga, right? Where obviously that's not, but it's, yeah, you're going to come up against terrible, negative, suffering things, but then it's, you know, how you deal with it. And it's not, you don't have to think that that's beautiful or like amazing or blissful in the moment, and it's not supposed to be.
Right.
But it's then what, you know, how you continue after that, right?
Yes.
And like what you're going to do with it and how you're going to take it. But like, and that's more the true,
right.
You know, that's more the true thing. And even like if you think about a yoga class and, you know, if somebody who hasn't done a yoga class, in their mind, they're going and they're going to be like blissed out the whole time. Like, no, going through a yoga class sucks.
Right.
Like, you know, like,
that's the whole point. Yeah.
Exactly. That's the whole point. And then when you're done, yeah, maybe you feel more blissful. You feel, you know, your body gets to kind of relax because it went through that, you know. And of course, some yoga classes are meant to be more, whatever, actually blissful through the whole thing. But they're different. Yeah, they're these different types of yoga, right?
Yeah.
So if you're going through, you know, more of a power yoga class or whatever, like there's like it's not it's you can convince yourself that you enjoy it after you do it for long enough because you then have a true understanding of what happens after. So then you're associating the class, however negative and suffering it is, with the post class of like, oh, I know that once I do this, I feel better. So then I like doing this. But if you were to remove the two, it's not. It's you know, there's suffering going on during class. You know,
and yeah, I don't care how many times you practice. Like every single time, like I talked about how I did like 56 days in a row of power yoga. Every single time I made it to my mat, I was like, here we fucking go. You know, like it's never like, yay. I mean, sometimes it is. But more often than not, it's just like, here we fucking go. Like, here's our first chaturanga. Goddamn. You know? Like,
you know,
and then you get it going. And it's like, you can't really enjoy yoga without acknowledging how hard it is, right? Like those two are inseparable. The enjoyment and the suffering are one, you know? Like chaturanga is coming whether you like it or not, you know? And like how you choose to go about it in here is your decision. And I think that's the target of yoga, is to try to frame it positively. But also like, there's a certain amount of satisfaction and a sense of accomplishment that you get in doing the daily shit that you don't want to do and going through it anyway with a smile on your face. You know, there's a satisfaction in doing that. And I think that's a very human thing. Is like, yeah, I don't want to do this, but I did it anyway. And now I know I needed to do it. I know it was good for me. So
yeah, and a lot of people don't have a task like that in their day, other than like maybe going to work or like what. But like that's not real, you know. Like if that's your main cause of suffering, then you need to change what you're doing with 40 plus hours of your week. But a lot of people don't have a task or whatever, a hobby, a workout or whatever that they do that
teaches them how to do that.
That is suffering, or that is a huge struggle. Like our lives are so easy. Yeah. Like, and not take anything away from people that do have hard lives, and they certainly do, but like our lives are just so comparatively, we don't have you don't have to struggle for anything. All right, maybe you don't have enough money and you have to struggle to get money, but like comparatively to the rest of our human history, like
we're sitting pretty.
Best time to be alive. But that also makes us the softest that we've ever been.
Yes.
In general. So then it's how do you recreate some of that suffering that our bodies were built to do and built to handle, and mechanisms within our body were designed with that in mind. Like, oh, there's always going to be suffering and, reasons that we're going to need to be resilient. So there are these mechanisms in our body that are tied directly to that,
Right.
And then all of a sudden there is nothing tough that we're going through, and specifically physically, like that's, mainly, that's how we evolved. So there's nothing physically difficult that we're going through. And then there are all these mechanisms in our body that are like, what are we doing? What are we even doing here? Does this guy need us? Like, should we just shut this shit down?
Right.
And I feel like that's what starts to happen.
Death and aging are coming no matter what. You know what I mean? Like, these things are coming no matter what. And so whether you like it or not, they're suffering. Mm-hmm. Disease is coming. Death is coming. The people you know will die. Facts. And there's nothing you can do about it. You can delay it and even that's a variable, because there's people that live ultra healthy lives and still get cancer super early. You can do your best to try to manipulate it so that you do have a long and healthy life, but even that isn't guaranteed. And so the suffering is there no matter what. And it's like, the suffering is there no matter what. It's like the pleasure, the satisfaction, the growth, those are the optional things. Because your body is literally deteriorating every second, and like the growth and what you do with this body, that's the optional part. Yeah. I also feel like the whole setting the bar for like yoga as like this thing that teaches you to be eternally blissful, I feel like that sets an unfair standard to yoga teachers. And I think that's kind of really what I'm upset about, is that like, I don't know. There's a certain jealousy I get when I see my friends posting like memes about like eating ass and stuff like that. And I'm just like, I can't post that, like, because I'm a yoga teacher and like people will judge me harshly because I'm supposed to be this yoga teacher. And in some sense, it's true. And this could just be my lower self, like just crying right now. It's like, well, and maybe I don't even need to be doing all that stuff. It could be. I'm trying to call myself on my own bullshit, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know. I feel like that's part of modern enlightenment. It's like saying your prayers, being present to the moment, and then eating that booty hole. You know what I mean? Like, like.
I think that. I think that you're right to some extent. Like, it depends, though. It depends on what your overall goal as a yoga teacher is. Mm-hmm. And if, you can take the approach that, okay, I want to be accepted and looked up to by as many people as possible, in which case maybe staying away from comments or memes like that would be most beneficial. Or you want to teach the people and reach the people that your most authentic self will also resonate with. Mm-hmm. Right?
Right.
So there's some balance there of that. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it probably shouldn't be 100% one way or the other. And we certainly do tread on kind of, unstable grounds being like male teachers in a mainly female dominant area or environment, because obviously so then you have to take into account the thought and mindset that's more typical to that population as well. So like,
if you want to market yourself successfully,
yeah. Or, you could just look for the other, 100,000 males that have the same mindset as you. or similar enough that will, but it's like, because we're all so different. So there are enough people to appreciate exactly what your mindset is, but then we're also all so different. And part of our responsibility is being sensitive to those who do potentially, think different or whatever,
Yes.
to not
I completely agree.
So there's some balance there,
Right.
I don't, you shouldn't be, covering up and like, just deleting thoughts that you have 100% of the time just to then be like, say some, cue in some like yoga inspirational quote or something. But, I feel like you shouldn't be so far in either direction.
Yeah.
Like it's somewhere in the middle.
Right.
And even more, I think it's somewhere in the middle and very closer to your authentic self. And I hesitate saying that too, because it's weird thinking that you shouldn't just be your authentic self. But there's also some level of, as an individual, like you have thoughts that are not acceptable to share to anybody,
Right. Yep.
Like, this is like a weird random thing. I'm sure other people will relate to this, so I'll just throw it out there.
Let's hear
but
it.
Like, are you ever driving in your car and the thought just passes through your mind like, I wonder what it would be like if I just smashed this car into that guardrail? Not that I would, not that it's a thing that I would act on at all, but it's like
it's an impulse.
It's a thought that pops into my mind. So you could argue that that's part of my authentic self, but there's also the part of my authentic self that says, that's not a great idea.
Right.
And it's just part of that weird dance with like the things that pop into your head versus what what's kind of appropriate to share, but then also being true to that authentic nature of yourself.
The French have a name for that, by the way. It's called the call to darkness or something like that. And it's like specifically like humans have an impulse, like if you're like close to a guardrail, it's like, what would happen if I just drove into that guardrail? Or like if you're at a cliff, like what would happen if I just jumped off? Like apparently this is a normal thing. And because I used to flip out about it. I thought I was the only one that like thought about this stuff. Shit. And then I was like, oh, there's a name for this, so I'm not crazy. What I think it really boils down to is how do you want to live your life? And this is how I came to it, is that we know that living your life, we know this because it's beaten into our heads from when we were little. Living your life for the sole purpose of money and sensory pleasures is not the way. That's not going to give you happiness. That's a never-ending rabbit hole. And it's the grass is always greener every step you take. You make $100K, now you need to make $1 million. You make $1 million, now you need to make 10 mil. And like food, beer, whatever, any sensory stimulus, it just doesn't. The rabbit hole never ends. So you know that's not the way to be. But I don't know if the other extent is right either. Do you need to be a monk or a nun and like give everything up and give up all of your possession? I think you should, with today, you should give up most of your possessions, but like all of your possession, do you need to give up all, like, do you need to just never eat bomb ass food again? Do you need to never do anything sexual that makes you happy? You need, like, I don't think that's enlightenment either. I think it exists somewhere in between in this very happy balance that ideally exists simultaneously. If you can simultaneously feed both of them, like the monk and the business person inside of you, or at least oscillate back and forth between the two very quickly, like that to me is what enlightenment is. And that's why like I almost like protest the whole like everything is good yoga, typical yoga teacher, is because like I don't think that that's real enlightenment. I think that that's a lie. And it really comes down to that. It's like you take it to the two extremes, the monk or the business person.
Right. But you have to acknowledge that both of those things do exist. Right. Like they both do exist. So that also they're both possible. But then it's, for you individually, where on that spectrum do you want to exist or bounce around in between, right? And I think that you're right, and I think that's the answer for the like 98% of people or whatever it is, that they're looking for that kind of sweet spot of like, okay, where can I be so that I'm at peace with myself and the things going on in the world that I can't control.
And I generate my happiness from within, no matter what, and I'm responsible for my mood.
Yes. Balancing that with also the realization, well, we have to live in this world, and this is a very much material world. So
and I have to put a roof over my head.
Exactly. There's some amount of financial success that you have to have in order to, put a roof over your head, feed yourself, feed, your family if you're in that position, and, and then what comes of that. And this kind of reminds me of, I don't know if this gets too much off topic, but we'll figure it out. And Jordan Peterson came up in the last podcast
there
as well,
we go.
but I'll do it again. He talks about what the meaning of life is, and he very much thinks that, you create the meaning of life. But the way that you create it is by first taking care of yourself and your own needs. So like what we were talking about, you go to work, whatever, you find a way that you can contribute to society in a way that's good enough that, it returns to you the money and the means to take care of yourself, right? Take care of yourself first. Hopefully you take care of yourself enough to be even more successful at that. And then, if you're lucky enough, you can also then care for your family. So then it expands out some. And if you're successful in, caring for your family and creating that family unit, and you still have more to give, then it's about how can you positively influence the community around you, whether that's, now maybe we're talking about a town or a city or whatever, or smaller communities, whatever. And that keeps going outward to whatever extent that you can. And that's basically, that's where you find meaning. And again, it goes back to the other thing where that's not easy to do.
Right.
And that there's suffering and there's a lot of hard work and discipline that goes into being able to do that. But as you kind of create that for yourself, you then, he would argue that that's what fulfills people the most. So that's kind of what the meaning of life is.
It's your own natural enlightenment. It's your enlightenment,
And we can look at it like that. Like everybody's enlightenment is a little different, because it's for each individual, however far on that spectrum, you want to go, or you're willing to go or capable of going, that's where you go. There's nothing telling you that you have to continue further on that path if you're happy and content with the place that you're at. Which also kind of makes me think, though, the idea around Buddhism and reincarnation is kind of that idea where in this life you're going to reach some level, right? It's you're on the path and you're going to move forward on that path towards enlightenment to some extent. Chances are you're not going to get there, but then when you're reincarnated into your next life, you're kind of starting at that point and moving forward from there. Mm-hmm. And eventually, over whatever, over however much time, if it's your soul that's carrying on towards these other lives, that, then you reach enlightenment. And if you think about that on a huge scale of time, the chances that your soul is in the body that's going to reach enlightenment are pretty small, right?
Right.
Which I don't know. I mean, I don't really believe in reincarnation or anything, but these ideas that give, an explanation and that give words that kind of bring to life, these metaphors and thoughts, I feel like are valuable.
Side note, the idea of enlightenment is always, it's kind of bothered me because So moksha is what happens when you achieve enlightenment and then you stop being reincarnated.
Right.
Right. And like it hit me, I think at Vipassana actually. I was like, well, if God or whoever is liberating these people from the physical form once they achieve enlightenment, he's actually doing us a disservice because all the good people are leaving.
Right.
You know, like, oh, this person basically becomes the holiest form and then they get to leave us. Like, shouldn't they stay and like help everybody else? You know,
but maybe that talks to the idea that life is supposed to be suffering. Mm-hmm. Because if it weren't, then how would you achieve a higher level of anything if you aren't suffering now, right? So you got to take that into account too. If you just let all the enlightened beings be around us still, and then they just told us, they taught us the way, and then it's like, wait, well, these people didn't, it's like not earning, it's not earning your way, earning your path. Like, what can you and we as humans learn from experience more than anything else. You can't, like, you can tell me something and I'm like, oh yeah, I understand that.
Right.
But not until I personally experience it that I can then like really have a true understanding of it,
That's a Buddhist teaching too. It's like, I can tell you how to be enlightened, but I can't just enlighten you. Right. Buddha says like, I can't just like reach into your mind and enlighten you. You have to do the work. Right. That's part of what makes it enlightenment.
It's like, I can show you, you can show you the path. Right. But like, you have to be the one to take the steps.
Yeah. I can write you the prescription. You got to be the one to take the medicine, right?
Right. Yeah.
Building off of episode 1.
Yeah.
But I think too, like that the modern like spiritual entrepreneur is like almost battling with that in its purest form, because we're trying to be spiritual and happy and pursue meaningful lives where we help ourselves and in doing so help everybody else around us, and we try to live in service. But at the same time, you and I could make the most fire podcast known to man, and it's just like pure divine speech. Like maybe God channels himself through us. Like imagine just some crazy thing like that. It's still gonna have to get marketed to people, or else no one's going to hear about it. Yeah. So there's a certain amount of like dollar signs that you have to see and maneuver through, to serve. And it's almost from that frame, not doing the business work is actually a disservice to your spiritual self.
Yeah. For sure. And I wonder how much we're like just coming at this from a yoga professional point of view, and I'm curious how much others will relate to this. I think that they will, but I'm curious exactly how. So I don't know if anybody leave some comments if you're listening. But
yes, are you talking about like someone that has just like a 9 to 5?
Right. Yeah. That from that point of view, because you're right. Like from our point of view, so you have to have a business or marketing mindset, at least to some extent, to be successful. Because, like you said, nobody would hear, and it's that allows you to gain enough. So, one, to take care of yourself, like the same thing I was just talking about. To make enough money to take care of yourself, cool. To make enough money to take care of your family, great. Moving along that ladder. Like your marketing sense and marketing capabilities, like they need to expand in order to allow you to expand your, how much you can contribute to your family and your community and society.
Right. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this episode. We hope y'all enjoyed it. Definitely leave a comment if you have anything to say. I hope you do. We had talked about a lot of controversial stuff. Like the video, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Peace.